Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're going to be ranking the 12 wonders of the modern age. Now, starting with the Brandenburg Gate, we have a wonder with a base yield of 6 production, which is excellent because at this point in the game, production is the best base yield you can hope for on a wonder, as food and gold will be mainly driven by your towns, while culture, science, and happiness are all shared resources that are surely in the high hundreds, if not thousands, by this point in the game. But aside from the base yield, the Brandenburg Gate only reduces the happiness from war weariness in the city that it's constructed in, and adds 5 points of happiness to all conquered settlement. Neither of these bonuses are worth much, so at the end of the day, the Brandenburg Gate will find itself in the B tier. Terrain restriction wise, the Brandenburg Gate will only require a district adjacency, and for unlock requirements, it will need the mastery of the militarism civic, which has a civic tree depth of 7.5. This wonder is the associated wonder of the Prussia civilization, which means they can unlock it much faster with their unique civic tree, and construct it at the discounted production cost of 1,077, compared to the default cost of 1,400, which is the highest production cost of wonders in the modern age. Next up, we have the Chengde Mountain Resort, which has a base yield of 6 gold, but its main effect is 5% culture for every civilization that you share a trade route with. This is a faction-wide bonus and not restricted to the cultural output of the city in which the wonder is built in, and thus is incredibly powerful. Of course, this amount will scale with map size, so there are some variants here, but even taking account of smaller map sizes and civilization-wide for more aggressive players, I think the Chengde Mountain Resort deserves at least an A tier ranking. For terrain restrictions, this wonder requires a mountain adjacency, and for unlock requirements, it needs the mastery of the Hegemony Civic with a civic tree depth of 6.5. Lastly, this wonder is the associated wonder of Qing China, who can unlock this wonder faster with their unique civic tree and enjoy the discounted cost of 1,077 production compared to the standard cost of 1,400. Continue with the Dogo Onsen, we have a wonder that's currently bugged in the game, but for the purpose of this tier list, I'm going to judge it according to the intended effect, with the hope of a future hotfix. As stated in the game, the Dogo Onsen has a base yield of just 4 happiness, but will grant 1 population in the settlement that is constructed in at the start of every celebration. Currently, this wonder is bugged and will give every settlement a new population, which makes it instantly S tier worthy. But assuming the developers will correct this bug, the actual effect of the Dogo Onsen is much more tame, and is the best a B tier wonder. For terrain restrictions, this wonder requires a coastal adjacency, and for unlock requirements, it needs the social question civic with a civic tree depth of just 1. Additionally, this is the associated wonder of Minji Japan, but since the civic tree depth is just 1, everyone has a great chance of rushing for it, but Minji Japan would still have the advantage of construction costs as they get the discounted cost of just 769 versus the standard cost of just 1,000 even. Next up, we have the Doi Suthep, which has a base yield of 4 influence and a main effect of 5 culture and gold for every suzerainship you have. The issue with this wonder and many wonders in the modern age is how short the modern age is currently. Until endgame rebalancing or 4th age is added, the modern age will continue to be the shortest age in the game, with victories happening as early as turn 25 if you're planning for a certain victory condition all game. This means bonuses such as the one here, where you have to invest a large amount of influence and then wait for 15 to 20 turns for suzerainship, just for a meager bonus of maybe 20 to 30 culture and gold per turn, is just not going to be worth it. Another weakness of this wonder is that you have no control over AI aggression against independent states, and you could end up with an oversaturated map with barely any possible suzerain target by the modern age. So for all those reasons, this ends up in the F tier for me. For terrain restrictions, this wonder requires any rough tile, and for unlock requirements, it needs the political theory civic with the civic tree depth of 4. Lastly, this wonder is the associated wonder of Siam, who will get the discounted cost of 769 compared to the standard price of 1,000. Continuing on with the Eiffel Tower, we have a wonder with a base yield of 5 culture. The main effect is 2 culture and happiness on every quarter in this city. And while this might have been a great bonus in the Antiquity Age, it is just no longer good during the Modern Age when your culture and happiness output should be both well above 500 by this point. The number of quarters in one city can go up to 20 plus if you don't overbuild, but that is extremely inefficient. So realistically, it is probably between 12 to 15 on the high end and possibly just around 10 on the low end, depending largely on how good your rural tile potentials are. So we're looking at a wonder that gives maybe around 25 culture and 20 happiness, which honestly is not going to move the needle this late in the game once you factor in how many turns are left in the game. So for those reasons, I think the Eiffel Tower is just a C tier wonder in the modern age. For terrain restrictions, it needs to be district adjacent, and for unlock requirements, it needs the radar technology with a tech tree depth of 5. Lastly, the Eiffel Tower is the associated wonder of the French, which gives them a discounted construction cost of 923 versus the standard cost of 1,200. Up next, we have the Hermitage with a base yield of 4 culture. It also provides 3 artifact slots and grants all city a 10% culture boost if they have a great work on display. Personally, I view this as essentially a 10% culture boost, as unless you're ignoring the cultural victory path and just not digging up any artifacts, which is entirely a valid strategy, your cities will probably all get a great work eventually, and since your towns will not be your main source of culture as you can't have cultural buildings there, the boost is essentially a faction-wide 10% boost. Now, compared to the Chengde Mountain Resort, the Hermitage is weaker in terms of providing culture, but the Hermitage have 3 artifact slot, which contribute to a victory condition. So for that reason alone, I'm okay with putting it in the A tier. For terrain restrictions, the Hermitage must be built on a tundra tile, and for unlock conditions, it requires the modern Civic with a Civic tree depth of just 1. This wonder is also the associated wonder of Russia, who can build it at the discounted price of 769 versus the standard cost of just 1,000. Moving on, we have the Muzibu Azaala Mpanga, which has a base yield of 4 food, which is laughably useless at this point. Unfortunately, its main effect is 2 food on all lake tiles in your civilization, and 2 culture and happiness on lake tiles within the city this wonder is built in. First off, lake tiles are possibly the worst terrain feature you can have in any city, aside from mountains. So while this bonus is trying to salvage that, I don't even think you should have any large and meaningful cities at this point in the game, with a large number of lake tiles in them to get enough culture and happiness on them to have this wonder worthwhile. So simply put, this is probably one of the worst wonders in the game, in a close race with the Great Stele from the Antiquity Age, and given that there's not even that many turns left in the game after you complete this wonder, I think even the Great Stele is a better bet than this. So this definitely belongs in the F tier. For terrain restrictions, this wonder requires lake adjacency, and for unlock requirements, it needs the natural history civic with a civic tree depth of just 1. Lastly, this is the associated wonder of the Buganda civilization, as they will enjoy a discounted construction cost of 769 compared to the standard cost of just 1,000. Next up, we have the Oxford University, which belongs to the S tier, and it's the first wonder you should always rush for in the modern age. In terms of base yield, it just has 4 science, but it provides 2 free technologies and 1 wildcard attribute point. At this point in the game, 2 free tech is at minimum worth 2,000 points of technology. And unlike all the per turn yield increases you get from other wonders, you're getting this bonus all at once, which counteracts the main issue we mentioned earlier about the shortness of the modern age. And on top of all this, you also get a wildcard attribute point to use to advance whichever leader bonus tree that fits your victory condition. So all in all, this is hands down the best wonder in the modern age, and you should always go for Oxford University first. For terrain restrictions, Oxford University just needs a district adjacency, and for unlock requirement, it just needs the academic technology with a tech tree depth of 1. Most importantly, this is not an associated wonder of any civ, and thus everyone will get to build this for just 1,000 production. Moving on to the Palacio di Bellas Art, we have a wonder with a base yield of 5 culture and additional effect of 2 happiness on all great works, 3 artifact slots, and 10% happiness to the city that this wonder is constructed in. Generally, the combination of culture and happiness is excellent for celebration pushes, but at this point in the game, you're probably only going to see 3 to 4 celebrations in total during the modern age, and the increase in happiness here, which can become quite a lot if you have the proper amount of happiness stacking through resource assignments in the city that builds this, you're probably going to end up with maybe one extra celebration. With that said, 3 artifact slots are still very valuable in the modern age since it plays a role directly in the cultural victory. So like all the wonders before with artifact slots, I'm going to put this in the A tier. For terrain restriction, this wonder just needs to be adjacent to a district, and for unlock requirement, it's going to need the mastery of the globalism civic with a civic tree depth of 5.5. Lastly, the Palacio de Bellas Artes is the associated wonder of Mexico, who can unlock it faster and get a discounted production cost of 923 versus the standard cost of 1,200. Up next, we have the Red Fort, which has a base yield of 4 gold, which is completely meaningless at this point. Its main effect is that it counts as a fortified district, and all city centers get a bonus 50 HP to its defense. So while I can't say this effect is useless, as it does contribute to defense, I don't think it's any better than C tier. For terrain restrictions, this wonder just needs to be adjacent to a district, and for unlock requirement, it needs just the military science tech with the tech tree depth of just 1. Lastly, the Red Fort is the associated wonder of the Muko civilization, who gets the discounted construction cost of 769 compared to the standard cost of just 1,000. Moving on, we have the Statue of Liberty. It has a base yield of 6 happiness and provides you with 4 migrants upon completion. Now, migrants can be added to any city as a population, as long as the city still has an unworked rural tile. This is a major restriction, as most of your most populous cities will probably already have maxed out their rural tiles, but at the end of the day, 4 extra population is still very useful, even if they have to end up as rural districts. So Statue of Liberty is going to end up here in the B tier. For terrain restrictions, it needs to be on a coastal tile that is still adjacent to land. And for unlock requirement, the Statue of Liberty needs the mastery of the capitalism civic with a civic tree depth of 6.5. This wonder is the associated wonder of America, who can unlock it faster and build it cheaper at a discount of 1,077 versus the standard cost of 1,400. Finally, the last wonder of the modern age is the Taj Mahal with the base yield of 5 gold. Additionally, it will increase your celebration length by 50% or 5 turns and provides you with 1 wildcard attribute point. The increase to celebration length can be both good and bad depending on your happiness output. If you have very high happiness, then this bonus will actually reduce the number of celebrations you can have in the modern age and end up taking away social policy slots and bonuses from the Dogo Onsen. However, if you're struggling with your happiness, then increasing the length will give you more bonus uptime from your government bonus and potentially your Notre Dame bonus from the previous age. But disregarding this potential conflict, the wildcard attribute point alone here is worthy of making Taj Mahal A tier worthy, as you can gear this to specialize for your particular victory path, and by this point in the game, all the leader bonuses are probably the more powerful ones in the later half of the attribute trees. For terrain restriction, the Taj Mahal requires just a plain tile, and for unlock requirement, it needs the mastery of the nationalism civic with a civic tree depth of 5.5. And lastly, the Taj Mahal is not an associated wonder of any civilization, and everyone can build it for the construction cost of 1,200 production. Now, at the end here, it's worth mentioning that both the Manhattan Project and the World Fair are also considered wonders, but they're both unlocked as part of separate victory conditions, and the game essentially ends by the time they're constructed, even though you do have to do additional project after the Manhattan Project. But overall, we're not going to be ranking them here as they're not really competing with the rest of the wonders. And that's going to do it for our wonder tier list. Obviously, all the rankings here are based on my limited experience with the game so far since the launch. And if the game updates in the future or drops DLCs that include new wonders for the modern age, then I'll definitely update this tier list in a new video and put the link in the pinned comment below. At the end here, let me know how I did and share any alterations you might make. Finally, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!